increased effort and higher performance among employees? Which I've been told by my boss a lot, but I am self-employed. A 2021 study from the University of Arizona found that women are just as likely as men to enter a competition, but only when there's what? Miles.
Mimosas.
All right. That's a 2.5-point answer there. Jan LaBelle.
A gift basket, 17 participation prizes, the opportunity to ask at least 25 questions.
Nope. A way for winners and losers to share the prize. That's the firing line, everybody. Wow. It is nearly time for our Jubilee Theater audience to pick a winner, but first, here to tell us why he lives by the words, winner takes almost. Here's Miles Anderson.
Competition is dehumanizing. We should see each other as people, not competitors. I have 3 younger siblings, and competition amongst and it is sad. They both make more money than me now, but unfortunately they cannot buy skill. We need to be less competitive. I am tired of having to win all the time to survive. I'm tired of hustle culture. I propose that we adopt Russell culture. Instead of hustling at 5 a.m., we should be rustling our bed sheets as we get a healthy amount of sleep. Thank you very much.
Miles Anderson. Yes. Telling everyone to slow down a bit. More Russell, less hustle. Now, here again to tell us why she thinks that if she ever wrote a children's book about a lazy stuffed bear, it would be called Winner the Pooh. It's Jen LaBelle.
A lack of competition has made you so complacent that senators in North Carolina have introduced a bill that would ban participation trophies. Having coached high school basketball, I see their point. Nice shot, Cody. You got it right over the backboard that time. And you're shooting at the wrong net. But good try. I bet your dad wishes he didn't participate with your mom 15 years ago.
That's it?
Yep.
Jen LaBelle, everybody. Jen LaBelle. It is up to you, audience, to pick a winner by applause. Who agreed with Jen that in support of her competitive streak, she should change her name to Victory Jen LaBelle? Okay. A lot of support for Jen. And who agreed with Miles when he picked up the slack on competitiveness and proudly proclaimed, whatever? Miles Anderson. All right. Well, this was a weird one. The audience has enthusiastically chosen the competitiveness is not that important. By that, they've made Miles a winner. It's Miles Anderson. Competitiveness is not that important. Big hand for Miles Anderson and Jen LaBelle, everybody. Well, that's all for this week. I'm Steve Patterson saying when it comes to competition, our listeners are second to none. I'll argue with you again soon, Canada. Good night.
The Debaters is created by Richard Side. This week's episode was produced by Josh Bailey, Graham Clark, Chloe Edbrook, and Nicole Callender. With continuity by Graham Clark, Diana Francis, and Gary Jones. Technical production by James Perella and Lloyd Peterson. Story editing by Gary Jones. With special thanks to Katie Ellen Humphreys, Emily Ferrier, and David Pride. Executive producer of CBC Radio Comedy is Lee Pitts. And thanks to everyone at the Jubilee Place Theatre and the Winnipeg Comedy Festival.
This is CBC Radio 1, 990 AM, 89.3 FM in Winnipeg.
Rubik's, Jigsaw, Wordle,
Hardly. Get ready, Canada. It's time for another edition of That's Puzzling. Host Pia Chattopadhyay competes against one familiar voice and one clever listener in a battle of brain games devised by puzzle master Peter Brown. That's Puzzling on the Sunday Magazine. Sunday morning at 9:30 in Newfoundland, and on demand on CBC Listen.
You know the feeling of finding a really good podcast? Or the feeling of someone always being there, like your favorite radio show. Stream CBC Podcasts, CBC Music, and CBC Radio anytime, anywhere. Download the CBC Listen app for free.
This is CBC News. At 12 o'clock, we're at 9 degrees with light rain over downtown Winnipeg. Good afternoon. I'm Matt Humphrey. A judge has ruled the trial of a Winnipeg man accused of killing 4 women in 2022 will still be heard by a jury. The CBC's Brittany Greenslade has more on today's decision.
A judge has dismissed an attempt by Jeremy Skibicki's lawyers to have his first-degree murder trial heard by a judge alone. Court of King's Bench Chief Justice Glenn Joyal says the case will be decided by a jury. Skibicki's lawyers argued that 2 years of publicity surrounding the high-profile case may have biased the jurors. Today's decision comes just days before the jury is expected to start hearing evidence. Skibicki has been charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of Rebecca Contois, Morgan Harris, Mercedes Myron, and a 4th unidentified person known as Buffalo Woman. His legal team says they plan to argue he's not criminally responsible for the deaths because of a mental illness. He's pleaded not guilty. The trial is set to start next Wednesday. Brittany Greenslade, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The province of Manitoba is supporting 2 housing projects that will provide affordable rent and supports for those experiencing homelessness. Today, Housing, Addictions and Homelessness Minister Bernadette Smith announced the more than $5 million in capital funding. Part of the money will go to the construction of a 15-unit building on Balmoral Street, led by the University of Winnipeg Community Renewal Corporation. Smith says it'll serve as second-stage housing for Indigenous and newcomer women and children who have faced gender-based violence.
Are investing $2.25 million for the construction, as well as over $400,000 annually to ensure rent geared to income rates and the presence of necessary supports once the project's doors are open.
The second project is a 154-unit complex in Transcona with a number of accessible units. CBC News has learned police have made several arrests in the killing of a sick activist last June. The shooting of Hardeep Singh Nijjar in Surrey, BC led to a major diplomatic rift between Canada and India. Kate McKenna has your details.
CBC News has learned the men arrested are Indian nationals who entered Canada since 2021, at least some of them on international student visas. Sources close to the investigation say police are also investigating possible links to a number of other killings on Canadian soil. Raids took place in at least 2 western provinces this morning. Hardeep Singh Nijjar was an advocate for the creation of Khalistan, a separate homeland for Sikhs. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has repeatedly said there's intelligence the Indian government was involved in Nijjar's killing. He recently spoke to a Punjabi media roundtable.
There are credible reasons to believe that agents of the government of India were involved in the killing of a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil.
The Indian government has denied it ordered extrajudicial killings in Canada. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
Canada's top court has ordered a new trial for a BC man convicted of sexual assault. Frank Tumpumba is a francophone man from BC. He says his rights were violated because he had not been offered an option to be tried in French. BC's Court of Appeal dismissed his case because Tumpumba also speaks English. But the Supreme Court upheld his appeal and ordered a new trial in French. Britain's Foreign Secretary is pledging to make arming Ukraine a national priority. David Cameron was in Kyiv today, promising to transfer more long-range missiles and air defense systems to the Ukrainian war effort. And he says Britain will not impose restrictions on their use. Chris Brown explains.
Hi, how you doing? With Ukraine facing arguably some of the toughest months it's endured since Russia's invasion 2.5 years ago, British Foreign Secretary David Cameron came to Kyiv with money and words of encouragement. Britain is providing Ukraine with $4 billion US annually in military support, and notably, Cameron said Ukraine has the right to use new long-range Western missiles to strike Russian territory.
Russia has launched an attack into Ukraine, and Ukraine absolutely has the right to strike back at Russia.
Russia has reacted angrily. A Kremlin spokesperson says Cameron's words are proof that the West is waging a war on Russia. Russia's defense minister says Russian forces have captured over 500 square kilometers of Ukrainian territory this year, much of it in the past few weeks, as Ukraine has run dangerously low on Western-supplied munitions. Chris Brown, CBC News, London.
The federal government is kicking in money for professional soccer. Ottawa is giving Toronto more than $100 million to help with the cost of hosting the 2026 FIFA World Cup matches. Toronto will host 6 matches at a projected cost of some $380 million. And the 7 games in Vancouver will cost around $500 million. That city is getting $116 million from the federal government. And the Winnipeg Jets may be out of the running for the Stanley Cup, but their head coach has been named a finalist for the Jack Adams Award. That's the award for NHL Coach of the Year. Rick Bowness is among 3 finalists. This is the 69-year-old's second season as the Jets head coach. Bowness led the team to 4th spot in the entire league for the regular season. In Winnipeg, a high of 11 today with a few scattered showers throughout the day. In Brennan, you're seeing between 5 and 10 millimeters of rain with a high around 10 degrees. In Dauphin, showers and a high of 8 degrees. Flin Flon, cloudy, a chance of wet snow, a high of 8. Thompson, a chance of rain, a high of 7. And in Churchill, light snow off and on with a high around 0.
Hello, my friends. Thanks for joining us today for Radio Noon here on CBC Radio 1. That's 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on your CBC Listen app or on YouTube. My name is Janet Stewart. Today on the program, we're talking about lawn care. We've got an expert, the head grower for a well-established greenhouse in our province, joining us. She can answer whatever questions you have about lawn care. So that's coming up after our 12:30 news and weather. Also today, we're talking about the importance of setting aside time to mourn those we've lost because of substances. We'll talk about Drug-Related Death Bereavement Day in our program. But we begin with concern about drought and what it could do to our food prices. It has been a sort of soggy week across the province, be it snow up north or rain down south and through the middle. We needed that precipitation, but it's been varied, and it hasn't been quite enough. Check the Canadian Drought Monitor online, and you will see the precipitation we've had recently has not been enough to offset abnormally dry conditions that we've seen across the province and indeed across the prairies this year. Ellen Goddard has been looking at drought maps too, and not just for Canada. She's an agricultural economist, and she's worried. I had the chance to speak with her earlier this week.
I think my biggest fear is that we're going to have a drought in a lot of places. Canada imports a lot of foodstuffs at certain times of year. We also produce an enormous amount, but we export a lot of what we produce on the grain side and even on the livestock side in a normal market. So I'm not so worried about supply in those sectors, but I am worried about if the U.S. and Canada both have droughts in wide areas of the countries, then the price of food will go up because we import a lot of foodstuffs from the U.S.
And the price of food going up is something that so few of us can afford right now. It's already gone up so much.
Yeah, this is the big worry because the timing couldn't be worse. And if we have inflation starting to ease a bit, as it normally would in the summer, when we supply a lot of our fruits and vegetables, for example, aren't imported in the summer because we can grow them in Canada in season. But if they start being affected negatively by drought, then we're not going to see the prices going down to the extent that they normally do. And we desperately need the prices to go down.
What happens if, for example, we worry about Manitoba specifically, but if it's not just a Manitoba issue, if Saskatchewan is also in a drought and Alberta's also in a drought, and as you mentioned, the United States is, how does that trickle through different types of food production?
What happens when we have a drought is that pastures don't grow either. So it's hard for us to keep cattle on pasture in a drought season. And if farmers have to buy feed, that dramatically increases their costs of production, particularly at the beginning stages of beef production, for example. Once cattle are in a feedlot, then feed is being brought in to feed them. But the beginning stages, the cows and the calves are on pasture, and if the pasture doesn't grow, then they can't maintain as many animals. It's as simple as that. And we're seeing decline in the number of livestock in both Canada and the U.S., and that could mean very high prices. Not immediately, but over the lifetime of the animal. If we've got fewer cows, we'll have fewer calves, and there will be fewer animals going into feedlots later in their life, and there will be fewer animals to slaughter after that.
You just said we're seeing decline in the numbers of animals in livestock numbers. Why is that?
Well,
already?
This isn't the first drought we've had, for one thing. I mean, we've been pretty dry for a number of years, and costs are going up. When we talk about inflationary pressure for consumers, it's also inflationary pressure for farmers. And so maybe they can't afford to keep as many animals. And as I said, conditions have been dry for a number of years.
I'm not a climatologist, but conditions have been dry for a number of years. These extremes that we see in the weather now, and the dryness, and suddenly it's flooding, suddenly it's drought, or not so suddenly. It does seem to be climate change related. And a lot of people would look at animal production, for example, the methane that comes from cattle and the land that they need, as contributing factors to climate change. Is that a pressure that farmers are seeing and feeling as well?
It's certainly a pressure they're feeling. It's also pressure that they are not, how shall I say, very sympathetic to, in some senses. For example, if we don't have as much temperate grassland as an ecosystem left in Canada as we would have had, say, 100 years ago. And so
because we built
we're worried about losing that entire ecosystem, which will have huge impacts on all kinds of endangered species, whether they're endangered or not, on other wildlife and birds and insects that normally inhabit the grasslands. So if we graze the grasslands with cattle, then to a certain extent we will keep them in grasslands. If we don't have any animals grazing the grasslands, it's possible invasive species will take over. So there are issues on both sides of the equation. There's no question about methane being released from cattle animals, whether they're dairy or beef animals. And farmers are making enormous changes to try and accommodate that. There's been additives approved for diets that will change the amount of methane that's released. There are methane inhibitors that some people use. There are genomic ways of dealing with cattle, like breeding cattle who produce less methane. And there's a new innovation in Canada in the dairy industry where they are actually able now to select for bulls that have calves that produce less methane. And that's happening in the dairy industry to a great extent, and ultimately will also be taken up in the beef industry. So I think farmers are doing everything in their power to try and reduce the methane that's being reduced from cattle. But there's this other environmental implication of cattle grazing where, you know, a couple of 100 years ago, it used to be bison grazing that maintained the grasslands. So there are trade-offs that we have to look at around this issue. It's not as simple as let's stop having cattle. I also think, by the way, that one of the most worrying characteristics of what's going on weather-wise, if you like, in Western Canada at the moment is the fact that the fires have started so early. And that is also exacerbated by dry conditions. So that makes life complicated for everybody, including farmers.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me.
Ellen Goddard is an agricultural economist and professor emeritus at the University of Alberta.
Massey Hall, the most iconic music venue in Canada. An absolute milestone in the careers of musicians who stand on the historic stage. And you have a front row seat. The Beaches, Charlotte Cardin, William Prince, Jeremy Dutcher, July Talk, and more. CBC Music Live at Massey Hall. Now available on CBC Jam.
Thank you, Toronto!
And thank you, Manitoba and Northwestern Ontario, and wherever you're listening from today for joining us today on Radio Noon. We have a call-in, as you know, coming up in our second half hour. Today's topic is lawn care. We've got an expert who's going to be joining us with whatever tips you need and advice and comments. We'd love to hear from you. And when I say that, I really mean it. I really do love it when people call us. After the show, you can even call and leave messages because, you know, sometimes those messages make you smile, like this one. It's from Tara, who was driving to work from the Interlake when she phoned. Her first call got cut off, so she called back with this observation.
I was continuing to drive, and I pulled over because I saw someone mowing their lawn, and I realized that one of the signs of spring is a critical decision that anybody who identifies as a woman, and indeed some that identify as men, have to face, is whether or not to shave our legs. And I think that also relates to the idea of mowing. So, a sign of spring is the existential crisis of to mow or not to mow, to shave or not to shave. And I think both should be left natural. We have enough things to stress about. Why add these to the mix?
I shared Tara's message this morning on Information Radio. Marcia Marcusa laughed, and then she joked that we should make our call in today about leg shaving. Then Tessa called.
Hi, my name is Tessa, and I'm from Prada, Manitoba. And I say don't shave your legs yet. It is tick season, and I find it's much easier to feel a tick crawling up your leg if you got a little bit of hair on there. Thanks very much. Enjoy your rainy day.
We love hearing from you here on Radio Noon. Call us any old time about any old thing. And if you've got ideas for a call-in, like leg shaving, let us know. Today we're going to stick with lawn care. I think we'll stick with lawn care. But you know what? If somebody calls about leg shaving, we'll laugh about that too. Why not? Today we have a serious conversation we have to change gears now and talk about, and that is the impact of the drug crisis that's been gripping really our country, but certainly our province for the last number of years. It just seems to be getting more and more intense as the drug supply gets more and more tainted. But there's a service coming up on Sunday, a memorial for people who've lost ones they love to substances or because of substances. We're going to tell you about that in just a few minutes. Right now, we've got partly cloudy conditions being reported at the Paw. It's raining in Portage. It's cloudy in Norway House, raining in Island Lake, cloudy in Flin Flon, light rain in Dauphin. It really is kind of a gray day. Riley Lachuk is going to join us at 12:30 to let us know when things will warm up and get a little bit cheerier out there. So stay with us. Riley will be here right after the 12:30 news. Sunday is Red Dress Day. That's a day to raise awareness about missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and Two-Spirit people. Events marking the day will be held right across the province. This year, Sunday also happens to be Drug-Related Death Bereavement Day here in Manitoba. Antoinette Gravel-Ouellette joins us now by Zoom from her home in Rivers, Manitoba. Thanks for being with us, Antoinette.
Thank you so much for having me today.
You are the program coordinator of a national group called Mums Stop the Harm. Tell us about that group.
Mom Stop the Harm is a national nonprofit organization that started in 2017 with 3 moms that lost their children to toxic drugs, Pedro Schultz, Lorna Thomas, and Leslie McBain. And from there, they've been quite a force across the country, bringing a voice forward. So there's 2 sides pretty much to Mom Stop the Harm, or 2 streams. One is the advocacy side, advocating for policy changes, and then the program side, and which is, we have 2 programs, Healing Hearts and Holding Hope. Healing Hearts is groups for those who have lost a loved one due to substance-related harms, and Holding Hope is for people that have loved ones still struggling.
And I saw you gulp there, because the cost of all of this is so painful. It is. I know years ago you lost your own husband to substance-related harm. Tell us how those out there who might want to learn more about the groups you're talking about could find more information. Let's just start right there.
Yeah, absolutely. What happens often is when people have lost a loved one due to substance-related harms, or have a loved one still struggling, there's so much stigma. And so we provide groups where there is not that. So Healing Hearts, you can find more information. We have groups all across Canada, including in Manitoba. So we have in-person and online groups. And so people could look up either the Mum Stop the Harm website, or healingheartscanada.org is for people that have lost a loved one due to substance-related harms, or holdinghopecanada.org for people that have a loved one still struggling.
Talking about Manitoba specifically, we have seen such an increase in drug-related deaths and substance-related deaths. Now, Sunday is Drug-Related Death Bereavement Day here in Manitoba. Why do you think it's important that we have that day in this province?
First of all, I maybe I'm going to back up a little bit. I just wanted to say heartfelt thanks for all of those people that continually stood to have this happen in Manitoba. Bernadette Smith, who at the time she introduced the private members bill, was the NDP critic for and introduced it last year. And so it was after that the bill got passed. And so it's important to give people a space and a time just to really honor their loved ones, to remember our loved ones that have passed. I personally have lost some really close friends, and I am in conversations with parents, with siblings, with people that have lost co-workers. And last year in Manitoba, the numbers are 455 people that have died due to toxic drugs. That is not including that it may be substance-related harms. So our groups incorporate that as well, because sometimes people don't know where they fit. And I've had many, many conversations with people that felt like they couldn't talk about it because of the stigma, because of what's attached to it. So it's a space on Sunday to come to honor your loved one, and people can bring a picture, share a song, or if they don't want to say anything, they don't have to. They can show support, because there's also people that I know personally, nurses that have
cared for people, tried to help,
and
that hurts.
And for one person, one loss, there's at least 10 plus people that have been impacted. So people come out to honor, to spend time together, to share, really to know too that you're not alone. You're not the only one that's going through this. We also have a local group of Mom Stop the Harm members that are providing, as we were talking, putting this together, one person said, I can make bannock. And somebody else said, I'll make some soup. Somebody else said, well, we got to have something to drink. So they're going to bring water. So people are bringing together because it's really, how do we care for one another? How do we be kind and nurture one another? And it's really about, that ceremony of coming together to love and to be supportive with one another.
So this particular gathering you're talking about is in Brandon on Sunday, in Dinsdale Park from 4 to 5. Are there other gatherings that you're aware of in Manitoba?
There is one in Winnipeg the same day at the same time from 4 to 5 at the Gone Too Soon Garden, which is on Waterfront.
How does it help when you're grieving to be with someone who gets it?
It makes a huge difference and a huge impact because there is an unspoken language that happens. You don't have to explain it. The other person can just feel what you're feeling because they get it. And when you want to talk about your loved one again and again and again, which happens, people hold that space for you. It's a loving, kind space. And especially with toxic drugs deaths, there's often a lot of complexity around it, and there's a lot of trauma around it. There can be a lot of anticipatory grief that took place before. So there's so many different layers to it that it doesn't need to be explained. But when people get together, that they can share with one another, and everybody knows that that's what's going on, and you get it. And it's about hearts really connecting.
Well, Antoinette Gravel-Ouellette, I'm grateful for your time today. It's obvious that you care deeply about this. Thank you for joining us to tell us more about Moms Stop the Harm and Drug-Related Death Bereavement Day.
Thank you so much for having me. And I encourage anybody to come out if you've lost a loved one or if you're in support of those that have. So you're welcome.
Antoinette Gravel-Ouellette joined us by Zoom from her home in Rivers, Manitoba, where she is the program coordinator of a national group called Moms Stop the Harm. It's 12:27, and on this Friday afternoon, Madeline Rogers is going to sing for us. Here she is from her 2018 album, Cottonwood, with 60 Years More.
I'm just a girl, I haven't got a clue. Somebody fill me in where a man got to. Help me with my microphone. Help me lift this curse. Help me wrap my head around this verse. You don't have to say what you already showed. I was worthless. I was worthless. I was worthless since 16 weeks old. I'm just a girl who made a little mess. How to fix me up is anybody's guess. Bleeding in the kitchen, ketchup on the child. Talking too much, acting too wild. You don't have to tell me what I already know. I was paid less, I was paid less, I was paid less since 16 years old. I'm a thinker, I'm a hiker, I'm a mountain biker, I'm a shovel, I'm a hammer, I'm a creaky ladder, I'm a hugger, I'm a mother, I'm a midnight lover, and I'm a dancer, I'm a singer, I'm a long hair tosser. but I'm not meant to be. Don't make me hear
Madeline Roger with a beautiful song called 60 Years More from her Cottonwood album. We are 30 seconds away from starting the 12:30 news, so this is time to pick up the phone and call us. What information do you need about lawn care? We've got an expert standing by to take your calls. 204-780-0893. Do you have thoughts about lawns? Do you prefer that they be gardens? Let us know. 780-0893. Right now, the time is 12:30.
This is CBC News. At 12:30, we're at 10 degrees with rainy skies over downtown Winnipeg. Good afternoon, I'm Matt Humphrey. A judge has dismissed an attempt by Jeremy Skibicki's defense lawyers to have his first-degree murder trial heard by a judge alone. The judge says the case will be decided by a jury. Skibicki's lawyers argued that 2 years of publicity surrounding the high-profile case may have biased the jurors. Today's decision comes just days before the jury is expected to start hearing evidence. Skibicki has been charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of Rebecca Comtois, Morgan Harris, Mercedes Myron, and a 4th unidentified person known as Mashkode Bishikikwe Iban, or Buffalo Woman. The province of Manitoba says it's investing in 2 new projects providing affordable housing for people experiencing homelessness. It's announced more than $5 million to help in the construction of the blocks, one in downtown, the other in Transcona. A 154-building unit will have several fully accessible suites. James Heinrichs is the executive director of Winnipeg Housing Rehabilitation Corporation, which spearheaded the project. He says there will also be ongoing supports for those transitioning from homelessness.
They don't have the same resources that all of us do. So I think it's really important that as we move forward, we're going to be able to help people out to maintain their homes, to be able to be successful, and as you already stated, to eventually have home ownership.
The other project is a 15-unit building on Balmoral Street. They'll be for Indigenous and newcomer women and children who have experienced gender-based violence. And finally, there is evidence of foreign interference in the past 2 federal Canadian elections, but it ultimately did not sway which party formed government. That's the initial finding of a public inquiry which conducted months of investigations and hearings. Rafi Boudjikanian has your details.
Foreign interference is a real occurrence and a serious threat.
A threat Justice Marie-Josée Hogg says that may have swayed some votes 3 years ago. The commissioner of the public inquiry into foreign interference says negative messaging, possibly by the government of China, may have sunk the re-election of Conservative incumbent Kenny Chiu in the British Columbia riding of Steveston Richmond East. But she can't know for sure. Her initial report released today also notes foreign interference by Beijing may have helped the nomination of then Liberal candidate Han Dong in 2019 in the Toronto riding of Don Valley North. But Ogg says none of this had an impact on the overall integrity of the electoral system in either election.
Voters were able to cast their ballots. Their votes were duly registered and counted.
The next part of Ogg's work will examine how governments can better detect and deter foreign interference. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
And that's your CBC News from Winnipeg. For news anytime, you can head on over to our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you so much, Matt Humphrey.
Back soon.
Matt Humphrey from our newsroom today, and Riley Lachuk joins us now. Riley, of course, is watching the weather for us.
And a little bit of soggy weather, Janet, still making its way through the province. Little rain, not a bad thing. Nice soaking rain, probably an even better thing for a lot of farmers in our province. Right now we are seeing still a few showers, especially through the Westman region, even as far east as, say, Portage la Prairie into Glenborough, Treeherne, getting some showers through the morning and into the afternoon hours here. So, expect that to continue as we get into the afternoon hours today. Maybe a few flurries through parts of northern Manitoba, especially through the later afternoon hours through areas like Thompson. Maybe Norway House could see a few snowflakes this afternoon, but the God's Lake, Islands Lake region, kind of right on the line between this falling as rain and maybe a few snowflakes for the afternoon. So we could see some wet flurries along the Hudson Bay coast. A better chance of some wet flurries to the early morning tomorrow. That's when us here in southern Manitoba start to clear out. So by the time we hit, say, lunchtime tomorrow, we're looking at predominantly sunny sky here in Winnipeg with still some cloud hanging around. By the time we reach supper time on Saturday, though, we are really into the sunshine across southern Manitoba. Still a few lingering flurries along the Hudson Bay coast. Gillam, Shamattawa likely to get a few flurries as well. Saturday into early Sunday. In terms of accumulation, really nothing staying on the ground, but we could see a couple centimeters, especially as the temperatures dip. Sunday also looking sunny, and we see more cloud building in as we get into Monday. For rainfall, traced to a couple of millimeters yet to come across southern Manitoba. What has fallen is likely as much as we're going to see, especially here in the Red River Valley, but could pick up a couple more millimeters in areas like Brandon through Boissevain, Melita. In terms of snow in the north, forecast modeling suggesting maybe a couple of centimeters for places like Gillam and Churchill. Not out of the question as we see temperatures, of course, falling into the next 24 hours or so here. Right now, it's 9 in both Winnipeg and Portage la Prairie, 8s for Dauphin and Brandon. Thompson is at 4 and 0 right now in Churchill. Looking at a high of 1 in Churchill with some flurries this afternoon. Mainly cloudy, a few lingering showers through Westman, highs of 9 this afternoon, and we're looking at 11 this afternoon in Winnipeg. 13 tomorrow, clouds depart through the day. 19 for Sunday, 20 for Monday with some showers moving through later into the evening, and a couple more wet days to come, Janet, Tuesday and Wednesday.
But it looks like it could be a nice sunny Sunday and Monday.
Yes, we're looking at a very nice weekend if you're a fan of the sunshine.
So don't forget the sunscreen,
yes,
too. That's something else we have to think about.
Exactly.
Riley Lachuk, thank you very much.
Have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too. Riley will join us this afternoon for Up to Speed between 3 and 6 p.m. And then he also joins the TV team for our CBC Winnipeg newscast. Now, yesterday on our call-in program, we had Marina von Stackelberg from CBC Ottawa with us. She's been studying the legislation for the new dental care plan that just came into effect on May 1st. Right now, it's offering coverage to people under a certain income level who are 70 years old or older. While we were chatting yesterday, someone called in with a phone number, a 1-800 number that I meant to pass out, and I apologize that I didn't. Thank you to the caller who pointed out after the show that, hey, you never did give us that 1-800 number. Here's the thing. I worry about the length of time you may have to hold for this, but so if you are comfortable on a computer, you might want to go to Canadian Dental Care Plan. Just Google that. You'll find the link in any of the CBC News stories that Marina has written in the past months about the plan. But if you need the 1-800 number, here it is. 1-800. No, that's not true. Let's start again. 1-833-537-4342. That's for the call center for the Canadian Dental Care Plan. There is an option there. If you hit 9, they'll connect you with a person. Again, I don't know how big the call center is, and I hope this doesn't put you on hold forever and ever and ever. But the Canadian Dental Care Plan call center number is 1-833-537-4342. Right now, benefits are available just for people who are 70 and older, under a certain income level, where you don't have another option for dental care. You don't have coverage from a private plan or an employer. People 65 to 69 are now eligible to go online and register. And as they get this thing rolling out, there's also, in case you're wondering about where to find a dentist locally who's taking the plan, there is a Sun Life searchable database. You'll find the link to that as well in Marina von Stackelberg's stories on CBC News about the Canadian Dental Care Plan. You can go in that, say where you are, and dentists who've so far signed up to the program will pop up there. Lots of questions still about our dental care plan. They're bound to continue, and we will help you with those answers as best we can. We also talked about recycling earlier this week, and I got a response from Lisa McCardson. I'm so sorry, Lisa, if I'm saying your last name wrong. She's the business communications coordinator with Winnipeg Water and Waste. And she wanted to point out that we were talking about how much stuff you put in your blue bin might actually end up in a landfill. She says over the last 12 months, they've had a monthly average in Winnipeg of about 16.7% of materials collected in our blue bins and carts going to a landfill. She says that's actually on par with national and general statistics for recycling programs. But she's got some advice that'll help your stuff that you put in a recycling bin not end up in the landfill. She asks you to flatten boxes. She says don't put any plastic bags in them. You know, you think sometimes a grocery bag or something might be recyclable. Well, it is, maybe, if you take it to the grocery store or a place that has grocery bag recycling, but not in your blue bin. And she asks that items with food or liquid in them don't be thrown in the bin. That'll spill onto paper or our cardboard and make it unusable, so it has to be dumped too. Thank you so much for that advice. Now, speaking of advice, let's talk lawn care. Erna Wiebe joins us now. Erna is the head grower of Oak Ridge Garden Center in Steinbach. Thank you for joining us, Erna. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am great. How often do you field questions about lawn care?
The lawn care probably isn't even the questions that I field the most. But yes, we answer the phone all day long and answer questions. That is for sure.
What are the things we should be doing about lawn care this time of year?
Well, you know, we had a lot of rain in the last couple of days, so probably everything's on a little bit of a hold. But you should be using a power broom, or you should be raking out your grass to get rid of some of the thatch. You could start probably sometime this coming week if the sun comes out. If your grass is too wet, you will snag, you know, those roots are pretty interwoven. And if your grass is too wet, you can start pulling up some of the roots. So it's better to wait till it's a little bit drier.
We'll talk more about your tips in just a moment, but I'm glad you said that because I want to give the number out again. 204-780-0893, 204-780-0893, and toll-free 1-800-268-5483. What does a lawn mean to you? Join our conversation. So some people are just so anxious because winter is long. They want to go out and
I get that.
You get that. But yes, if it's too wet, you should leave it.
You know, leave it a little bit. Let it dry up a little bit. But to dethatch, like I'll go into all of that if people have that question. But to dethatch at least every second year is a very good idea. We end up with a lot of you know, even grass clippings if you mulch while you're mowing and that kind of thing in your lawn. So it is a good idea to dethatch. That's one of the first things that you can do for your lawn in spring.
How does having thatch in there hurt the lawn?
You start getting dead patches because it's just too dense. There's no, you know, it's kind of a combination of needing to get sunlight down to the ground or to the roots, but not too much because cutting it too short is a problem. So thatch is an issue when it really starts getting matted on your lawn.
And what's the best? Oh, I'm so sorry, Erna. Keep going. I talked over you.
Oh, no, it's fine. It's, you know, and so just to pull it up, I think you were asking what the best method.
I was, actually. Thank you for being psychic.
Right. So using your rake is fine on your lawn. Just a metal rake is fine to do it yourself. If you're hiring a company to do it, they will probably come in with something called a power broom and they'll just pull all that dead grass out of there so that it regenerates and it starts sending up all those fresh new shoots again.
Fresh new shoots. You mentioned a second ago you shouldn't cut too low. Let's talk about when you should cut. Is it time to cut your lawn?
So if your lawn is established and if your grass is dry enough, sure, you can cut it. If it's a brand new lawn, if you've sod it, then you have to wait till the grass knits down a little bit, till the sod takes, till it actually sets in, that it grabs, and you're not picking up sod pieces with your lawnmower, because you will pick up the edges if you're mowing too soon. If you've seeded, you need the grass to be at least about 5 or 6 inches high before you cut it the first time. But if it's an established lawn, absolutely you can cut unless it's too wet.
Unless it's too wet. And again, well, it's ugly. I've tried cutting when it's too wet, and it's really easy to get something that looks quite patchy.
Yep, exactly.
Is that the only reason to
hammer down? Well, it's also you're creating ruts sometimes. If it's like my yard right now is actually very soggy, so I wouldn't be going on it right now. And you're also compacting the soil when you're walking across it. So when it's that wet, so yeah.
Oh, good point. I'm awfully glad we asked you to join us, Erna, because you know these things.
Well,
Tiana has joined us now as well. Tiana, hi. Thanks for calling Radio Noon.
Hi there. I'm just wondering about on how often you should aerate, and if you should do what you should do with those little plugs after that come out.
Tiana, thank you so much. And it's Tiana, correct? I said it. I apologize. I think I called you Tiana.
No, that's great.
That is an excellent question, Erna. What do you do with the little plugs of dirt that come out when you aerate, and how often should you aerate?
I would aerate probably every second year, and especially if you have an older lawn that's quite hard already. And Manitoba, we have a fair bit of clay content in our soils, and so it actually is it packs more than some of our parts of the world that have a little bit more of a looser soil than we have.
So is that the idea of aerating?
It is. Your lawn gets older, it gets compacted and hard. You're pulling out those plugs, you're getting some air back down into the roots. They're going to start expanding better again. The best time to fertilize is right after you've aerated, because you're going to those granular pellets of fertilizer will go down the holes that you've just created. And it all works like a great system. The plugs you're pulling up, you can leave those on the lawn. That's going to deteriorate. I know it looks maybe like there's a bunch of lumps on your lawn for the first week or so, but they'll disintegrate pretty quickly.
And that's almost like putting soil and sprinkling it on top or something.
Exactly.
It's helpful.
Exactly.
Now, Tiana, was also asking, when should you aerate? Is there a time of year that's ideal or a type of day?
Well, I think any time is great, but I do think spring is the best time. Just get your lawn started off the right way. And again, you'll have to wait till it dries up a little bit, but spring is a great time, right before you do your first lawn fertilizer.
Tiana, are you still with us?
Yes, just in here.
So I love that our first caller today is actually a woman, because there's this stereotype that the lawn is a male domain. Tell me about your lawn.
Not at my house. We share all the responsibilities at my house. So
mine too. Do you enjoy lawn care?
Sometimes it's better than being at the kitchen sink cleaning up, right? You're outside, you're getting fresh air. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you approach lawn care? Is it something that you're really active at, or do you just kind of leave it?
To be honest, my husband really loves to have a healthy lawn, and so yeah, we kind of work at it together, and we try and be proactive, and it's rewarding because it looks great, right?
And so you get a real sense of pride from it.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much for calling in today.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend. Now, you were just hearing, Erna, that to Tiana and her husband, the lawn means a lot to them. They get a real sense of pride. What do you hear or think it is that makes some people just love their lawns so much and spend so much time caring for them?
We're a little bit more rural here, so in Steinbach. So the people, my customers, absolutely love their lawns. I don't know if it is rural or if it's, cityscapes are like that as well. But I think we have, if you have a family, the lawn is important for kids to run around in. There's people actually just love the process of cutting the grass and taking care of it. I think that's all very rewarding.
It's interesting because it's also a chore. You'd think that would be something else I've got to do.
A chore. That's right. Yeah, it can be a chore too.
But people approach it as, it's something they actually enjoy doing.
Exactly. No, definitely know some people that love cutting the grass.
You mentioned that lawns are a wonderful place for the kids to run around and for everyone to play. It's a great place for the pets as well. But how do you manage pet damage? You know, those brown spots from where your dog loves to pee.
So there is a product that you can use that we find pretty effective. That it's an organic product that you put down. It's almost works a little better as a preventative. It's called Dog Spot. I think Dog Spot Remove by a company called Dirt and Grow. It's actually a Manitoba company that's developed a bunch of organic sorts of products, fertilizers and so on. And it neutralizes the soil in the areas that your pets tend to go in. So I'm not trying to sell a product here, but it's actually fairly effective. Other than that, it's cleaning up after your pet as fast as you can, and sometimes it's a little extra watering in those spots because you'll flush it down.
Oh, so ideally, after your dog has done their business, you would get the hose out and just clean it off right then?
That is helpful, right? But that's about all you can do.
There is a real movement toward organic, you mentioned, organic products. Have you noticed that changing over the years?
Absolutely. And I think it's a good thing. But it's much more of a surge in the last couple of years than it was before, than it was previous years. I've done this business for a long time. So organics, and you notice it in the grocery stores, although we're not talking groceries, but that section is growing as well. And our organic line is growing. So, and this, there's just some people that prefer not to put anything synthetic fertilizer or pesticide-wise on their property for pets or for kids or themselves.
I know that, we also want to make sure that whatever we are using isn't going to, in the next big rain, run off into the sewers and get into our water system. We want to protect our rivers and lakes. Brenda is with us. Oh,
go ahead.
My apologies. Hi, Brenda. Are you with us?
Yes.
Hi. I understand you've got a lake property.
Yes.
How concerned would you be about anything? We were talking about runoff. Is it important to you to have natural things and products around your lake property?
Oh, absolutely.
What is it that you have a question about today?
Actually, what I wanted to do is, instead of having an actual grass lawn, I would like to change it to planting thyme and periwinkle. So number one, I don't have to cut it with a gas lawnmower. And number two, that I don't have to fertilize it too much. But I'm concerned that it may attract bears. So I'm wondering about the bear, attraction if I do plant it all into thyme and periwinkle, and also how much I should water it. I don't want to fertilize it necessarily at all.
Erna, do you have any advice for that?
So I don't think bears would go after periwinkle, but I don't know that they wouldn't go after thyme.
Yeah.
I have no experience with that. I have lots of experience with trying to keep bears. Like, we have a cottage property, and keeping them out of my bird feeders and that kind of thing. And so, but I don't know about thyme. I'm sorry, I can't answer that for you, but periwinkle shouldn't be an issue. Yes, I don't think you need to fertilize either one of them at all if you're going into fairly decent soil on your property. And watering, thyme will need a little more than periwinkle. Mm-hmm. But if we have long periods of drought, maybe every 2 weeks you soak it down really well. I would say that's probably sufficient.
Okay.
Thank you, Brenda, for calling. We've got time for just one more call, I think, and that caller is Stephanie. Hi, how are you? Thanks for calling Radio Noon.
I'm good. I wanted to ask about, during the summer, sometimes I feel like when I'm on the lawn, I'm walking on like pebbled rocks in spots. Is that, what's causing that?
You're saying there's little mounds under your feet?
Yeah, like rock. Like it feels like I'm walking on rocks, like pebbles.
Well, the frost can throw pebbles up for sure out of the ground, and that'll happen in farmers' fields or in your garden. So it can push them up, and I'm wondering if that's what you have. But if they were softer than rocks, then it could be night crawlers, because we can get those into our lawn, and they'll make mounds in your grass. But
night crawlers.
Pardon me?
Sorry, Stephanie and I were talking about this at the same time. What were you saying, Stephanie?
Well, like, does it make it hard? Like you're walking on a pebble, like a river rock?
Would night crawlers feel that hard, do you think, Erna?
I actually don't think it would be that hard. I think you can feel the difference between that and a rock, because I've had them in my lawn, and it's certainly more spongy than a rock.
Do you think?
But I'm a little, yeah.
Is it time maybe for Stephanie to add a little more lawn soil or something like that? Do you think? If
aerate?
I would start with an aeration, like pulling plugs up and see what you have going on. That might be where I'd start. Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I don't know. I mean, there's also cinch bugs and that kind of thing that can create, kind of furrows or bumps on your lawn. But I always think they're a little softer than a pebble, so then that's where my confusion is.
Okay.
Good luck, Stephanie.
Okay,
thanks for calling. It is such a pleasure to walk around on nice, soft sod in your bare feet, isn't it, Erna?
It totally is. And you were talking about the runoff, and I just want to put a little plug in for Manitoba on that. Runoff with phosphorus into our lakes and rivers. Manitoba has, we can no longer sell a lawn fertilizer with more than 2% phosphorus in it, and that's what creates all the problems in your lakes and rivers. So I'm very proud of Manitoba for doing that. So our fertilizers on lawns should be at 2% for the middle number. So.
And remind us what those numbers stand for.
Nitrogen is the first number, so that can be high, especially for grass. The second number is phosphorus, and that has to be 2% or lower. So the number needs to be 2 or lower. The last number is potassium, and that's, root hardiness and that kind of thing. And again, that can be higher. So nitrogen, high, phosphorus, low, and potassium can be higher again.
Erna Wiebe, the head grower of Oak Ridge Garden Center in Steinbach. Thanks so much for spending this time with us today.
Of course. Thank you.
Erna works, of course. Her family runs Oak Ridge Garden Center in Steinbach. And if you've got any other questions or comments for us, remember you can call our listener line anytime, 204-788-3797. Chloe Friesen joins us now. Hi, Chloe.
Hello. I'm not here to talk about any lawns, but I'm here to talk about turf, which is kind of similar.
It is.
So high school football players from across the province are playing a very important game this weekend, but it's not for a trophy or a championship. It's a chance to show off their skills to scouts and coaches from across the country. So on Up to Speed, we're going to learn more about the second annual Blue and Gold Showcase.
Ooh.
Very exciting.
Exciting times for those players.
They get help from the Bombers in the process. It's a wonderful thing.
Thanks so much, Chloe.
No problem.
Chloe Friesen will be hosting Up to Speed today. That's 3 to 6 p.m. here on CBC Radio 1. I want to thank you all for spending this week with me. I hope you have an absolutely fabulous weekend. And remember, we always love to hear from you. Our listener line's the best place to leave a message, 204-788-3797. I want to thank everyone who worked so hard this week on our program. That would include Matt Humphrey in news, Riley Lachuk from our Weather Forecast Center, Brad Lillies and Travis Peterson working with us on YouTube and getting everything on air for you. Daniel Friesen's our technician today. Thanks, Daniel. Dylan Longhurst is our producer and director. Our show producer for the unit is Nellie Gonzalez. Senior producer of audio is Leif Larson. I'm Janet Stewart. I also want to thank Wendy Parker for all the work that she did this week. You are listening to CBC Radio 1. I hope you have a fabulous weekend. Coming up next, it's CBC Podcast Showcase. Take care, and we'll talk to you on Monday.